Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
How do you get to heaven? Do I really have to read the Bible? How do I pray? Did Jesus really walk on water? That's a doozy.
The podcast where kids can get answers to their big questions about faith. Here's your host, Pastor Eric.
Welcome to That's a Doozy, where kids get to ask big questions about their faith in God and the Bible. We live in God's big and beautiful world that is filled with wonder. You know, sometimes that wonder also brings up a lot of questions. And this podcast is all about asking those questions. Well, I'm Pastor Eric, and I am joined by a very special person today who has some questions, and let me tell you, they're doozies. And so I want to introduce our special friend. Can you tell us what your name is and how old you are?
Josie, and I'm 5.
Josie, and you are 5? Okay, Josie, I have one other question for you, okay? I'm curious, if you could become any animal, what animal would you become?
I don't know.
You don't know? What do you think you might want to be?
Still don't know.
You still, okay, nothing changed. All right, well, then let me ask you this question. Do you have a favorite animal?
I don't.
You don't. Do you have a pet?
No.
No pets. Okay, all right. So no animals? Well, that's fine. That's fine. You know, if I was to be an animal for a day, you know what I might be? A bald eagle. Why is that so funny? Because I'm bald? Okay. All right. Well, Josie, you've got some doozies of a question. Would you like to ask your first question?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your first question?
How is Satan around?
How long has Satan been around? Whoa. Okay. That's a really good question. Have you wondered that for a long time? Yeah, you have? Well, the Bible tells us a few different things that help us understand and learn how long Satan has been around. But you know the first place I want to look in the Bible? I actually want to look in the Bible in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Have you ever read the very first verse in the Bible?
No, because I can't read.
Oh my word, that's a really good point. Have you ever heard the first verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:1? Maybe. Well, it just so happens that I have it here, Josie, and it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over."
Heard anything?
You haven't.
Got it.
You didn't hear that? Well, you just did. You just did. And it says in Genesis 1:1 that God created the heavens and the earth, and before he created anything, do you know what there was?
No.
Well, there was nothing. There was nothing before God created it. Which means and tells us that God created everything. And so if God created everything, then what does that tell us about Satan?
I don't know.
Did Satan exist before the earth and before creation? Or did God create Satan?
God created Satan because he was an angel, a famous angel, and then he wanted to be God. So he been bad.
Yeah, that's right. So you know a lot of what the Bible tells us about Satan, that he was created as an angel, but then he wanted to be like God, and he got a little greedy and very prideful.
Yeah, and he has helpers to help him.
Yeah, the Bible tells us in 2 Peter chapter 2, actually, that there were a number of angels that rebelled. They were disobedient to God, and they had to be cast out of heaven. And that's and so what we know is that God created all of everything in the universe, including angels, which meant he would have made Satan. And we also know that God created the earth and man. And when do we first hear about Satan entering the scene? When do we first, do you know any stories when Satan talks to anybody in a garden?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve.
But because he turned into that snake and said, Adam and Eve eat the fruit.
Yeah, he tempted Adam and Eve and he said, you should disobey God, right? Yeah. So this is what we know from the Bible. We know that Satan did not exist before God, but that Satan was around sometime shortly after when God created the universe. And that he fell from heaven. He was no longer an angel in God's presence before he tempted Adam and Eve. So, I don't know, does that answer your question? How long has he been around?
Yes.
It does, yeah. We don't have an exact number, but it's been a while. But we know he wasn't before God because God made everything. So I really like that question. That was good. Do you have another question?
Yeah.
You do?
Why did the animals have to go 2 by 2?
Why did the animals go 2 by 2 in the ark? Do you have any ideas or thoughts? What do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Because it maybe went faster because it was storming.
Oh, so yeah, there probably was definitely a big storm going around. Do you think maybe if they were 2 by 2, they were...
Yeah, it was maybe faster for them because there was a lot of animals.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of animals. That's a really, really good thought. And I'm sure that Noah and his family were going as quick as they could to get those animals on that boat. Well, you know, the Bible does tell us in Genesis chapter 7, it tells us why there were two of every kind of animals. And it says to keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. And that's because you needed a boy animal and a girl animal so that they could have more babies and they could have animal families. Again, like maybe have you come up with a favorite animal yet?
No, I don't have one.
Okay.
Because I don't have a pet.
Oh, okay. You don't have a pet, so I will stop asking the same question over and over. Well, you need a boy animal and a girl animal, and then they can have an animal family, and then they can multiply. And since the flood wiped out all the other animals, they needed to have 2 of every kind so that there could be more animals after the flood. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does it make dollars? I'm just kidding. Okay. But here's the cool thing, Josie. So there was 2 of every kind, but did you know that there were actually a few animals where there were more than 2? Did you know that? In that same chapter, Genesis chapter 7, Noah, God tells him that there's a few special animals that he needs to bring 7 on the ark. And those were called the clean animals. And those were animals, it's not that they were like clean, like they just took a bath and they went rub-a-dub-dub, scrubbing the tub. No, not that kind of clean. But they were used for sacrifices so that Noah could make sacrifices to God and show how much he loved God and wanted to obey God. And so there were actually a few animals where there were more than 2. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
But I read a book where it showed me 2 by 2.
Yeah, and you know what? Most of the animals were 2 by 2, so that's accurate in that way. But you can maybe stump your parents with that. You're like, Mom, Dad, did you know that there were a few animals that were clean? That there were 7 of them that went on the ark. See if they know that. Well, do you have any other questions, Josie?
No.
Well, not today. I bet maybe later you will. And it's good to always ask questions.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Well, Josie, thank you so much for talking with me and asking those doozy of questions. And I'm excited for the next time that we can chat and maybe we'll talk about more questions. Can you say bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's a doozy. Thanks for listening. Do you have a question you want to ask? You can tell us at purposely.com. Just click on voicemail. Don't forget to leave a review or tell your friends about this podcast so they can listen too. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista family of ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.